Can you please record, my Lord Brigadier? Do you then realize that the description that Longwetala gives in A57 in bracket 2 describes a person who had a firearm in his possession as being short, dark, had dreadlocks, he had cheekbones, and he wore a jacket that was between brown, a jacket that had a color that ranged from being khaki to light brown, or in bracket beige in color.
I want to know A57. Ulongwethola uchaza lo muntu ophethe isibhamu njengomuntu omfishane, unsundu wanama-dreadlocks, futhi wayegqoke into engathi brown, futhi ke lana kuyabonakala nasebusweni wayenalokhu kuthiwa kusho ukuthi unamathamba avelayo, ngisho ukuthi chaza ukuthi laphakeme la ngenzansinyana kwemehlo.
My Lord, I think I've dealt with the issues of the statement that I was not present. What I realized is that a wrong person was identified. What I realized also, what I know for the fact is that this person was cleared by investigation, and it was the same when I came on board. The evidence that I have that points to the shooter relates to accused number 3. That's what the docket points to. This person was cleared, it was a wrongful identification, my Lord. The perpetrator, insofar as the evidence that we have in the docket, points to accused number 3 as the person who was shot and carrying a firearm.
Manje ke lo muntu lo ngoba bese ngichaze ukuthi lo muntu lo ovela lapha nalo muntu wakho nje kuyabonakala ukuthi akuyena, ngoba nje kwa ufakazi ubukhona bakwazi ukuthi bumkhiphe odabeni. Manje ke ufakazi sinabo thina bukhomba umsola wesithathu.
Thank you, Brigadier. Just a second.
Sorry, I don't have that statement. You're saying Mr. Longwetwala actually says he identifies William Mnisi or whatever, Mbata.
Yes, he says...
He actually says, I'm identifying Raj, I'm a Patrick.
Indeed, he says it by name, and that is why I'm saying those were the clear pointers, my Lord. That, and this person, it's specifically Zamambata, my Lord, is a known resident. Is a person that, if, for example, was involved in the commission of the offense, his name would have come up from the beginning. It would not have said it's unknown suspect. But in the warning statement, he says number 11, and he mentions the name of the person, Zamambat. And indeed, it is the name of this gentleman that was unlawfully identified, or rather prosecuted.
Lapha usedingani yabonakala ukuthi umuntu wakho nje uLongwetwala uyena lo okuthiwa uZamambatha. uZamambatha wensizwa nje yasendaweni eyaziwayo. Ukube babe khona, ukube kwakuyena ngempela babeyosho ukuthi cha uZamambatha ngoba bemazi negama lakhe.
Thank you. Now, in terms of the description that Longwe gives, remember what is crucial here is the description of the perpetrator who was in possession of the firearm as observed by those people who were in the house. Now, in terms of his description, Longwe Mbata describes the very point out the person who had the same characters as the person that he saw on the 26th of October 2014, who accosted them with a firearm. Is that not what it does here?
No, uthola phela uchaza lo muntu yena ambona now zonke impawu ezikhombisa ukuthi uyena lo muntu abombona ukuthi wabahlasela ngalelo langa.
But my Lord, he identified the wrong person. There is evidence to prove that. The evidence that we have before court points to accused number 3 as one of the intruders who was in the house. These are the facts and the evidence that is before us. Mr. Mbata was not the person that was inside the house, my lord. I don't know how many times can I repeat this, my lord.
Kodwa ngizolonga kuphinda kaningi lokuthi umbatha kuyena lo muntu owayelapha endlini ngoba phela uLongwethwala wakhomba umuntu okungeyena. Ngizolonga kuphinda leyo.
Your statement that the evidence that is before court points to accused number 3. You have been saying you said in your evidence in chief that in terms of your analysis of the evidence, in terms of how you evaluated the evidence, in terms of how you drew inference on the evidence, in terms of how you concluded on that evidence, you had then come to a viewpoint that accused number 3 is the person who had a firearm, not so.
Manje wena uthi ubufakazi onabo nobufakazi owabuhlaziya bonke bukhomba ukuthi umuntu wayephethe isibhamu solo sithatha kunjani?
My lord, my role is to investigate. I don't evaluate and make judgment on the evidence. I investigated, and the pointers in the investigation points the role that was played by each and every accused. That is guided by evidence, where accused number 1 in this matter indicates what role he played. Accused number 2, what role he played. Accused number 3 as the person who was inside and carrying the firearm. That's the evidence. That is what is contained in the docket. Not that I'm evaluating it and making a judgment call. That is the same with accused 4 and 5. Thereafter, my lord, after the investigation was done, the matter was then forwarded to the DPP. I've dealt with this part. And then the DPP then made a decision to arraign these people. It was not based on me. I don't make decision to arraign people, my lord. Mine was to investigate, and that's exactly what I did. And I'm saying in terms of what I collected, these accused were before court were connected in this matter in terms of the role they played. And the role that points to accused 3 is that he was one of the people who went into the house carrying the firearm.
Mina engangikuphenya ngaphenya nje ukuthi umuntu nomuntu wadlala lephi eqhaza kulo kulesi sigameko lesi ngagcina ngokuhlola kwami ngagcina ngibone ukuthi bani wenzani kwagcina ngikhombela lapho ukuthi umsolo sithathu uyena lo utho umuntu owayephethe isibambu futhi ke umsebenzi wami akubona ukuthi ngithathe izinqumo kodwa ke ufakazi lo besabuthola nomphumela ke wophenyo lwami ngakudlulisela ku DPP yena ke wayena iwathatha isinqumo sokuthi ababoshwe.
Thank you, Brigadier. At least you understand now. I'm happy to hear that at least in the ultimate end, you're able to understand what your role is. To remember that is something that I've been objecting to time and again in your evidence in chief, that you are not here to analyze evidence. You are not here to draw inferences. You're not here to make decisions. The decision that ultimately needs to be taken is to be done by the court. Thank you that at least you understand what your role is. Now you are saying, in terms of the evidence that you have, that you investigated, all pointers are showing, or pointers, not all, pointers are to the effect that the person who had a firearm on that day, the firearm guy was accused number 3. Is that what you're saying?
Manje ke wena uthi ke bonke ubufakazi onabo bukhomba ukuthi umsolo sithathu yena wayephethe isibhamu ngalelo langa.
My lord, I've always understood my role. Perhaps then it was misunderstood by Advocate Mnisi. I always knew where's my role and how far can I go. But I also understood that our purpose, including Advocate Mnisi and all the defense, we are here to assist the court to come to a just finding. And coming to the just finding, you do not withhold or try to keep things away from the court. The court is the one that will make a determination. That's my understanding. So there's no misunderstanding in that regard. But now coming to the question that I've been asked, my lord, when I refer to the firearm, and I've dealt with this part, I'm referring to the firearm that was linked to the crime scene. In other words, the firearm that discharged the bullet that was found at the crime scene, and alleged to be the one that have killed the deceased. And I've said that firearm is linked to accused number 3. I'm referring to those pointers, and that is based on the investigation. We dealt with Cleveland 96, We've dealt with statements of people who have said. We've dealt with exhibit HH and JJ, my lord.
into engishoyo ke mina ukuthi isibhamu lesi sibhamu esasetshenziswa isibhamu leso kajutshulwa ngaso sikhomba kumsolwa wesithathu.
Thank you. Let us now proceed. we shouldn't allow ourselves to be derailed from the point that we're dealing with now. We're dealing with the identity of the perpetrators who were in the house. And subsequent to that, Longwe Twala, as I've read into the record, Longwe Twala goes to the identification parade. Remember, what is important here is his observation of the person that he saw on that day. Whether that person is him or not, it's about the features that he saw on that day. Maybe he did not know that, but it's about the features. He goes to the identification parade. Remember, Longo says, the person who had a firearm was shot, he had dreadlocks, he was dark in complexion, and he had some visible jaws. He arrives at the identification parade. At the identification parade, he does not point out a white person or a person with a light-skinned complexion, a person who did not have dreadlocks. He points exactly a person who bears or who has similar features to the person that he saw on that day. Is that not what he did in this identification parade? If you've got an answer, you can answer. If you don't, simply say you were not there.
Udokotela yena wakhomba lo muntu yena athi wambona umchaza kahle ngalendlela ayembone ngayo wena wasemyamkhomba ke lo muntu munye nempendulo ngasho ungaphendula mungenayo na.
My lord, you identified the wrong person. I don't know how far can I take this because I've said it over and over again. The person that was identified was wrong. He was cleared by investigation. There was not even a firearm found in this possession. The firearm that was positively linked points to accused number 3. So I don't know how far can I take this identification by Mr. Twala.
Lo muntu lona amkhomba kwangeyena futhi wayenganaso nelesi sibhamu lesi esasimkhomba esasimxhuma naleli cala. Umuntu kwatholakala kwatholakala ufakazi ukuthi uyena uqhinga nalesi sibhamu lesi umsolwa wesithathu.
Whether this was the wrong person or not, but the features are speaking. But in the main, Longwe's identification of this person confirms what Makumalo also did. It basically confirms the description that Makumalo gave and what he himself, Longwe, gave. Both of them identified this person as a person who had similar features with the person that they saw on that day.
Manje lo washo lo ngothwala nencazelo yalo ngothwala ukuthi lo muntu wayenjani. Iqinisekisa lo bufakazi obalethwa uMakhumalo ngoba naye ukhuluma into eyodwa nalo washo lo ngothwala.
So, Mr. I want to be fair to you.
Yes.
You keep using the aphorism, similar features. Similar features.
Yes.
It's two different persons, logically. And I don't want us to belabor this point. When you say Rata has got similar features with Mr. Muyeki, we're talking about two different features. You are saying not long. Let's start with Mrs. Kumalo, Senior. Mrs. Kumalo pointed out a person who is pointed out also by Longwe.
Yes.
And they have similar features. You heard me, ne?
I need to understand.
You don't understand what I'm getting
I
at?
need to understand the court, my lord, because I don't just want to jump into answering the question.
Okay.
And when I say similar features, I am basing on their description, on how they describe this person.
Yeah, fine. No, you've heard me.
No, I did not. I could have heard the court, but I did not understand it, my lord.
When you say a person has got similar features, you're talking about two different physical entities.
Yes, ma'am.
Human beings.
Yes.
That's it.
It could have been a question of semantics.
It's not
What
semantics.
what I meant to say
Yeah.
is the person,
No, you must put it. Don't tell me. I'm just telling you, I want to be fair to your client. Okay, when you say a person with similar features, like the person who entered the house of Makumalo
yes,
and who happens to have been short with dreadlocks, cheekbones, and he had a beige or light.
maybe let me rephrase the question, my lord. Let me rephrase the question. And this is what I intended to say, Brigadier. That the person who was described by Makumalo and the person who was described by Longwe, that description is similar. The description of the person that they are describing is similar,
mina ngisho
which
ukuthi
is the reason why at the identification parade they identified one person.
mina ngithi-ke incazelo yokuthi lo muntu wayenjani njengoba echazwa uMakhumalo noLongwethwala bachaza into efana yikho bakhomba umuntu oyedwa.
Yes, my lord. That's why I said, my lord, I've answered this question. But that similarity also applies to accused 3 in terms of his height. He's also short.
Hayi futhi-ke naleyo ncazelo iyasebenza ingasetshenziswa umsolo wesithathu ngoba nayo mfishane.
That is very lame, Brigadier. That is very lame. If that is how we were taught by the South African police services to describe a person and suspect that he is this person because he's short, that's very lame. It's very lame indeed. But let us proceed.
I suppose that sarcastic comment can just be ignored, my lord.
My lord, indeed, I viewed it as sarcastic and insulting because it was put to me about the description of the suspect and I'm expected to comment. So I do not know how does Advocate Mnisi wants me to be selective and say certain things and not say certain things that must help this court to find a right decision, my lord. It is a fact that accused 3 is short. It's a fact, my lord. I'm not insulting or saying anything, and I was merely commenting on what he's putting to me. He's telling me Mrs. Kumalo and Longwethwala are describing this person who is short and dark in color with dreadlocks. And I'm saying, but in that description, part of that description fits accused 3. How could now that be lame and insulting and undermining, my lord? It's really uncalled for, and I'm pleading with Advocate Mnisi because we've been down this memory lane that please, the fact that I may say things that he doesn't like does not mean we have to undermine or disrespect each other. Let's just keep the decorum of this court and deal with the business of the day. We will differ from time to time, but there's nothing personal. We are here to assist the court, and let's deal with those facts accordingly, my lord, not to disrespect each other or call each other names. Because if I throw that name to him, it might not sit well with him, and I don't think we are here to do that. Can we just focus on the issues at hand and deal with them accordingly, my lord?
Don't worry, I'm going to proceed. I'm going to proceed. I'm just trying to sort out my papers here.
Please say how
Again, the state gave us a disclosure of a statement from Zandile Lorraine Kumalo. I think it was handed in as Exhibit P1 here at court. It was handed in as Exhibit P1. I can take it that because of the fact that it already was handed in as an exhibit, I bear no responsibility to authenticate it, because by virtue of the fact that it already got handed in as an exhibit, it is not in dispute that the statement was penned by Zandile. Nonetheless, this is what I'm at. Again, Zandile, in this statement, explains how the incident panned out. But as I'm saying, I'm at the description that she gives of the perpetrators in the house. That statement, it's 813. And Zandile is also in the list of state witnesses. She had already testified, in fact. Now, in paragraph 10, this is what she says in Exhibit P1. This is what she says. Let me just check if I can start it. Okay, I'm going to start it at the paragraph 9, where she says, "We all sat down and started making jokes. At that moment, it was around 20 hours in the evening, when suddenly two unknown African males walked inside the house from the kitchen door. One was in front." There's a bit of illegibility in the writing here. I'll try the best that I can to be smart in reading this paragraph. Let me start again. Paragraph 10. It reads thus: "One was in front, having a gun on his hand." Let me wear my spectacles. Let me start again. It says, one was in front, paragraph 10, one was in front having a gun on his hand. He was average height with dreadlocks, dark in complexion, thin in body, wearing a brown jacket or a beige in color. And he was having a small dops on his head. He had big eyes. But I will be able to identify him if I see him again. Let me read it again, because I think I was reading it in fits and starts. Now I'm going to flow. It says, one was in front having a gun in his hand. He was average height with dreadlocks, dark in complexion, thin in body, wearing a brown jacket of beige in color, and he had a small tops on his head. He had big eyes, but I will be able to identify him if I see him again. Now, this comes from one of the witnesses who was in the house, who already had testified before court. Here, Mrs. Zandile Kumalo says the person that I saw is having, or I can describe him in the following way. Short, he had dreadlocks. No, it doesn't say short. He says he had an average height. Average height. He had dreadlocks. He was dark in complexion and thin in body. Those are the, that is the description that Zandi there gives when she is requested to describe the person that was having a firearm in his possession. Now, this is the third person who describes the perpetrator according to the house as a dark person, as a person who had dreadlocks. Let me pause there for purposes of interpretation.
Manje lana uzandikhuluma luyamchaza lo muntu uthi wayemfishane engemude futhi wayezacile enama dreadlock futhi libala lakhe wayemnyama futhi enama dreadlock. Umuntu osathu lo uchaza lo muntu ukuthi wayenje.
My Lord, Miss Sandy Kumalo attended the very same ID parade where Longwe and her mother attended the same ID parade, and she didn't identify this person as one of the intruders. That's the first part that I can say. The second part, insofar as her statement and the testimony she testified, my Lord, I can't take it for that. I mean, I was not there. I think it would be fair that Miss Zandi is the one that who can explain herself. All I know is that she attended the ID parade and she didn't identify Miss Dembata, as it was the same with Mr. Longetwala and Gladness Kumalo.
Engakusho-ke ukuthi uZandi Khumalo wayekhona lapho ku-ID parade, yebo kuyiqiniso, kodwa-ke akazange akhombe umbatha njengalabo abanye ababili bakhomba umbatha, kodwa-ke ukuthi statement sabhalwa kanjani angeke ngakwazi ukusho lutho ngoba ngangingekho isibhala.
Thank you. I know that would sound a bit of an argument, but it is not. What Zandi basically is saying here is that, or what can be descend from the three statements here. Statement from Makumalo, Longwe, and Zandi, that describing a person in a similar fashion. And why they're doing this? Because they were all in their house when the incident happened. I will argue what happened when Zandi came to court and when she gave her testimony with regard to the description of the person that she saw having a firearm. That's going to be my argument. Thank you.
Ngoba impikisano yami-ke uma sengizofikela esikhathini sokuphikisana ukuthi uZandi Khumalo noma Khumalo noLongwe baletha-ke incazelo efanayo uma bechaza lo muntu.
I hear him, my Lord, sir.
Thank you.
Athi ngikuzwile.
Thank you. Now, further on, this court also heard the testimony of Mthokozi Sithwala, who testified here at court. He gave his own description.
Kanti awezwa umfazi kaMthokozi Sithwala naye wanika incazelo yakhe.
Mr. Madlala also gave his own description.
Ngoba Madlala naye walethe yakhe incazelo.
They all accord with what Ms. Mazala said, with what Zandile said, and with what Longwetwala said.
bonke bavumelana nokwasho uMadlala noZandi noLongwetwala.
My Lord, I was not. I know that the only witnesses who testified is Zandi, Kumalo, and the three gentlemen, the two gentlemen. I'm not sure if Longwetwala testified, but be that as it may, my Lord, I was not in court, so I don't know what was said by these witnesses, my Lord.
Ngangingekho enkantolo beletha lezi ncazelo zabo, so angikwazi ukusho ukuthi uphawula ukuthi bathini.
Thank you. Now, Brigadier, you had at length been saying that amongst the identifying features, amongst the reason why you were able to find, let me put it this way, amongst the reason that you put forward as your collaboration reason why you have come to this court to tell it that accused number 3 is linked with the commission of the offense. We have testified through the photos that were downloaded from his cell phone. And when you were taken through those photos by the state, you kept on mentioning that, the witnesses were saying he had dreadlocks. Yeah, we see him in the photo, say he's got dreadlocks. Witnesses go to photo number, so it also appears here, accused number 3 has got dreadlocks. Is that not so?
Yeah, anjeke wakhipha wena kulezi izathu le owazikhipha ngomsolwa uthi wena ke na wena uncike kakhulu kulezi ithombe ezakhishwa efonini yakhe lokuthi ama ofakazi bathi ke unama dreadlocks akunjalo.
Yes, my Lord, but the context it was put was that when we found his cell phone, that was seized under Cleveland 96 of 2015, there were downloads that were found, and in some of the photos, he was seen wearing, especially dated the date of 26 October 2014, wearing a khaki jacket and with dreadlocks. So I think I identified it in that context. The others were pictures not depicting the very same date, but where you could see accused 3 with dreadlocks. I remember there was one in particular where he had a gold teeth, and I ended up saying, in his benefit, because the angle is not clear, one will understand if there's reservation to say it's him. But in my view, I thought it was him, my Lord. So I testified along that context, a collaboration in terms of saying the person who went into the house on the day of the offense had dreadlocks, and one of the witnesses or two identifies a khaki jacket. And I said, when the phones was downloaded, when I actually got involved and requested Sergeant Mabasa to assist me with those downloads, then I was able to find some of the pictures depicting the date of the offense of the 26th of October 2014, depicting accused 3 with dreadlocks and having a khaki top, my Lord.
Manje ke umongo lokho engikushoyo ukuthi ke mhla ithombeni ezakhishwa efonini esinye sezithombe esikhombisa uSaturday umhla 26 ku October 2014, ukuthi siyakhombisa ukuthi wayenawo ama dreadlock, futhi ke ezinye sinye siyabonakala ukuthi ngathi wayenezinyo legolide, kodwa ke indlela esathathwa ngayo lesi sithombe singaletha ukungabaza kwabanye. Kodwa ke okunye kubonakalayo ukuthi leli bhantshi lekhaya esibonakala ithombeni yilo leli bhantshi abalichazela ukuthi wayeligqokile, ngoba ngathi mangisizwa uSergeant Mabaso wasakwazi ukukhipha lezi ithombe ukuze sikwazi ukubona konke lokho.
Thank you, Brigadier. I think I need to, I'm not so sure whether you're done.
I'm done, my Lord.
Thank you. Let me sketch a bit of a background of what Zungu said before I proceed on this aspect. Zungu comes and say, on the 26th of October 2014, he met all the accused at the Basutwini hostel, where there was a bit of something happening there, jamboree or a celebration. They were singing, you know, the traditional dances. But what is key, let us concentrate on accused number 3. Now, he says in his testimony, accused number 3 indeed had dreadlocks on that date.
manje kokusho uZungu uthi ngomhla 26 October 2014 uthi ke wahlangana nabasolwa kuse hostel ngathi ke kwakunedile lalikhona noma bebebhiyoza ngalelo langa kodwa ke uthi yebo uyaqiniseka ukuthi umsolwa wesithathu wayenama dreadlock ngalelo langa.
And by this, I'm not trying to validate what Zungu said. But then he says, at some point, they disappeared and came back.
Uthi khona isikhathi la abanye emalala khona baphinde babuye.
Where allegedly, according to him, there were exchange of firearms. That evidence is on record. I need not repeat it.
Khona ke nokunye ke ngagcila khona ukuthi ke kwakho khona ke nokwabelana ngezibhamu.
But Zungu says, accused number 3's dreadlocks on that day were braided. They were tied up at the back. They were like that when they disappeared. They were like that when they came back.
Kodwa uZungu uthi phela ama-dreadlocks akhe ayeboshiwe ngesikhathi behamba nangesikhathi bebuya ayesaboshiwe.
Do you follow up to that far?
I do, my lord.
Thank you.
Athi ngiyakulandelela lokho.
Thank you. Now, I take it you had a consultation with Zungu, who also described the manner in which accused number 3's dreadlocks were on that date, not so?
Athi ngiyathanda ukuthi wathi ukhuluma noZungu wachazela ukuthi ama-dreadlocks alo muntu ayenjani. Anginjani?
Yes, my lord, but also, my lord, Constable Zungu testified, and I don't think I will really, I testified before this court, and I was not in court. So as to what he said, because most of the assertions that has been put to me, it's what he said to this court. I was not here, and I wouldn't want to venture into that or try to contradict or even support him to say I'm covering. I think he was here, and those issues could be taken up with him. What I indicated insofar as the dreadlocks are concerned, my lord, it's in the downloads which has a date, and that's what I relied on. It's what anyone can see, and there's a date of the incident. Insofar as what Constable Zungu said before this court, I was not here, and I think those are the matters that can be taken up with him, my lord.
Okasho ke Constable Zungu la enkantolo ngeke ngakwazi ukuphawula ngakho ngoba ngangingekho enkantolo ngizange ngizwe ukuthi uthini singakubheka ukuthi ke kulama download enziwa futhi analo nanosuku ukuthi lezi ithombe sasinini ama dreadlocks ayabonakala kulezo ithombe kodwa kusho uZungu cha ngeke ngokwazi ukuphawula ngakho.
Thank you. My question was, when you had an interview with your own witness, Mr. Zungu, Constable Zungu, did you deal with the issue of dreadlocks that accused number 3 allegedly wore on that date, yes or no?
Kuzoma ukuthi ke na ikhuluma yini ngalama dreadlocks ukuthi ayenjani ngalelo langa no Zungu.
My lord, what Constable Zungu said to us is contained in his statement. So it was not my statement. It's his statement. I think I may have commissioned it. So if I have to see what he said about the dreadlocks, then one will have to go through his statement. I know he mentioned that accused 3 had dreadlocks, but as to whether they were in that fashion that Advocate Mnisi explains, I don't know, my lord. But it's contained in his statement. He made a statement, and then it was commissioned and then disclosed.
okubhaliwe estatementini sakhe kwabhalwa uyena akusona statement sami statement sakhe mhlawumbe ngabe ngisikhommissionile leso statement kodwa ke futhi wachaza kanjani ukuthi ama dreadlocks ayilukiwe aboshwa angeke ngakwazi ukuthi ngichaze lokho kodwa ke istatement sakhe mhlawumbe ngeza alethe phambi kwenkantolo ukuthi kube uyena ozochaza kahle ukuthi statement sakhe sithi
Brigadier, Zungu has already testified. I've given you a background of what he told this court. Now the question is about you and him interacting as an investigating officer and a witness. The question is, did you or you did not take him through the dreadlocks, or did you have a discussion around the dreadlocks that accused number 3 had on that day when you interviewed him as a witness?
What is the relevance of this question to the witness when Constable Zungu has testified and all these issues were taken up with him? It's not for this witness, my lord, to tell what happened during consultation when the witness himself has testified. We submit, my lord, that that question is unfair.
As it pleases the court, my lord. This had got everything to do with the subject of the matter that this court had to decide on, which is identity. Central to that identity is the issue of the dreadlocks, my lord. There is nothing unfair with this question. Thank you, my lord. I'm not so sure whether I need to proceed with this question or what.
Yeah, proceed.
Thank you, my lord. Brigadier, I am not asking you about what is contained in the statement. I'm asking you whether, as an investigating officer in this case, who was keen or who is keen to establish the identity of the perpetrators who got into their house on that day, did you discuss at your consultation with Mr. Zungu about the dreadlocks that accused number 3 had on that day, taking into account or noting that the issue of the dreadlocks is central to the identification of the perpetrators in the house, who got into the house?
funuwazi ukuthi wena naxoxisana yini no Zungu mayelana nokuthi i-identity nobunikazi balabantu ababesendlini babunjani sigqilela kulelo daba lokuthi ama-dreadlocks ayenjani.
My lord, I've already said my interaction with Constable Zungu is contained in his statement. I think he explains that part. And then secondly, my lord, and we dealt with this part again. Constable Zungu gave his statement while this matter, while this trial was proceeding. And I indicated why, my lord. But in his statement, he mentioned the accused by names. Names and surname. Names and surname is not the same as, for example, 812 was composed when people were trying to paste and try to match the description to a particular individual. In his statement, he specifies who is accused number 1, who is accused number 2, who is accused number 3, 4, and 5. And that happened while this matter is in process. It's a different situation than what happened at the initiation of this matter, my lord.
Constable Zungu kubhaliwe estatementini sakhe futhi ke statement sakhe echaza wabachaza ngamagama abo labantu echaza ukuthi bawubani kufana nalabo abanye ababezama ukuhlanganisa ukuthi labantu ababonwa babe abantu abanjani yena babeveza ngamagama abo ukuthi bawubani.
And I'm saying this part, my lord, of mentioning them by name because it relates to what is being put to me, that the central part in terms of identification, that he mentions them. He's not saying there were 5 people and I'm describing them like this. He says accused number 1, this is the person. So he mentions names. So the identification, insofar as I saw that statement, was not an issue that was difficult to place the accused on, my lord.
and njengoba ekhipha amagama abo lana wayechaza ukuthi umsolo oqala ubani umsolo osibili umsolo kwakuwubani igama lakhe ngoba lokho wakukhipha ke inkantolo isiqhubeka.
Yes, my lord. And I know that when it comes to accused 3, he dealt with the dreadlocks. As I've said, I just don't know to what extent. And if that is needed, then one will have to go through the statement, then I can then answer adequately in that regard, if that's what is required, my lord.
And masakhuluma ngomsolo wesithathu ngiyazi ukuthi wachaza kodwa ke angazi ukuthi ama-dreadlocks yena wawachaza kanjani ngoba kodwa ngiyazi ukuthi kusestatementini sakhe lo.
Now you're saying if you were to be afforded an opportunity, you'd find that, not so?
I'm saying if it is important for Advocate Mnisi to get a response from me insofar as what Constable Zungu told me about the dreadlocks, then I will, yes, ask for indulgence to go through his statement and see what is it that is contained. That's what I'm saying, my lord. But insofar as what he told this court, I wasn't here. All I know is that he mentions the accused by names, and that statement was taken when this matter was already in progress, my lord, not at the beginning stage.
Engikushoyo ke ukuthi ke uma kuwukuthi ke yadingeka ngakuhle ukuthi alethwe la enkantolo ukuthi azochaza yena ukuthi kunjani kodwa uma ukuthi bafuna ukuthi mina ngichaze ukuthi sathi masikhulumisana naye sakhulumisana safika phi mayelana no-dreadlocks ngingathanda ukuthi ngiye kuleso statement sakhe ukuthi ngiyosibheka ngibone ukuthi i-statement sakhe sakhuluma safika phi ngama-dreadlocks.
I think I've asked you this question 3 times and I still cannot decipher what the answer to that question is, but let me save you the agony. As I've said, Zungu, when he went through the pictures here on Exhibit S, Zungu confirmed that these are the dreadlocks that accused number 3 had, or this is the style of dreadlocks, braided dreadlocks, that accused number 3 had on that day in question. Before they left, that's now according to Zungu, and I'm saying, I'm not trying to validate what Zungu is saying. Before they left, and even after when they came back, he still had the same style of dreadlocks. Now, as an investigating officer, looking at Exhibit S, particularly on photo number 12, on page, I think it's page or photo number 12, may you please repeat. Photo number, I think this is page 12, yes, page 12. Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Now, if, oh, I'm sorry. Now, if you rely on Zungu, this is what Zungu gave as a description of the hairstyle, which is dreadlocks, which accused number 3 had on that day in question.
Ma uthi ke uZungu ke nathi indlela umsolo esithathu ayinama ayibophe ngakhona ama-dreadlock akhe ngalelo langa.
Now the question is, as an investigating officer, when you investigated this case with a view to try and found a description or the description of the perpetrator who had a firearm on that day, you come across this picture. Zungu says to you, this is how accused number 3 looked on that day. You have this information on one hand. On the other hand, you have got the witnesses who were in the house that are saying, yes, one of the perpetrators, particularly the one that had dreadlocks, not dreadlocks, particularly the one that had a firearm, had dreadlocks, but his dreadlocks went up to his neck portion. They don't say anything about the manner in which the dreadlocks were arranged. What is it that came to your mind? Is it that you are dealing with the right suspect or somebody else?
Manje uma kuwukuthi ke ubheka lesi sithombe futhi ubheke nencazelo owayinikwa ufakazi ngalelo langa futhi ukukhumbula ukuthi lencazelo owayithola ukuthi lama dreadlocks ayefika entanyeni ufikela kusiphi isinqumo.
My Lord, if you look at this, it correlates with what was said by the witnesses. So let's deal with the issue of the dreadlocks. The dreadlocks, if you look at them, even on the screen, they go up to the neck. And the statement that I was meant to describe, I think of Gladness Kumalo, described one of the intruders with dreadlocks, I think Ozandi, going up to the neck. And I know also, my Lord, that some of the witnesses who were sitting outside, the outsiders, I think it's Tabi saying it, described that one of the people who had dreadlocks, they were going up to the neck. This is what I see, my Lord, they go up to the neck. But secondly, the description by one of the suspects, witnesses, who says the intruder, the one with the dreadlocks, was wearing a khaki jacket. This is the khaki jacket that accused 3 was wearing. And if you look at the date, I've testified about this, my Lord. This date, this photo, according to the date, it's dated 2014-10-26. So there's a correlation that this is what, if one looks at this information, this is how accused 3 was dressed. Now, Constable Zungu was taken through this, my Lord, and he identified these photos in terms of saying, this is accused 3, this is the person, and that, and that, and that, my Lord. So there was a correlation because the length, in my observation, you don't have dreadlocks that are going beyond that. You can see them, they're up to the neck. So there is a correlation. And I think Constable Zungu specifically dealt with the photos and the issues of the dreadlocks on the date of the incident, my Lord. This photo correlates that part, my Lord.
Isithombe siyakhombisa ukuthi siyavumelana naloku kufaza sabuthola kulabantu ababesendlini nalabo bebengaphandle omunye wabo uNthabiseng ngoba kuyabonakala la ukuthi ugqoke lona leli bhantshi likakhakhi leli okwakhulunywa ngayo futhi ke kuyabonakala nalesi sithombeni ukuthi lesi sithombe sathi umhla 26 enyangeni ka October 2014 and futhi ke naloku kuyahambisana naloku okusho uZungu mayelana nama dreadlocks and futhi siyabona nalesi sithombeni ukuthi lama dreadlocks nempela yafika entanyeni.
Please, Advocate Sibanda, give us photo number 17. Photo number 17 gives a clearer version of the dreadlocks. Would you say that the dreadlocks as are exhibited, that are depicted in photo number 17, are similar to the dreadlocks that Ms. Makumalo talks about in her description of the suspect that she saw having a firearm in his possession when they got accosted.
manje kulesi sithombe sika number 17 ibonakala ngconywana futhi nama-dread abonakala ngcono. Umbuzo ke manje ukuthi manje ke la madrop ayafana yini nala madrop le umakhumala akhuluma ngawo uma ezama ukuchaza ukuthi umsolwa wayenjani?
So, no, my lord. So, on this photo, my lord, the dreadlocks are clearly longer. There's no dispute about it. You can see they are longer. However, this picture and the previous picture that we saw were not taken at the same time. The accused there, accused 3, because that's my observation, my lord, is alone. In this picture is with accused number 5. And you can see the angle that the dreadlocks are longer. But if you look at the previous picture, my lord, they come up to the neck. Now, I do not know whether they were worn in the same position on the first picture and the second picture. I was not there. All I can comment on is what I see. And in these ones, they are longer. On the other ones, they are shorter. But I was not there. I can't make a statement how we wore them when these 2 selfies were taken, my lord.
Lana-ke kuyabonakala kulesi sithombe ukuthi yebo ama-dreadlocks awafani ngoba la kuyacaca ukuthi ama-dreadlocks made kulesi sithombe lesi, kodwa-ke kulesi esinye isithombe ama-dreadlocks afika ngesetayeni. Manje-ke angeke sisho ukuthi la ma-dreadlock athathwa ngosuku, lezi iy'thombe zathathwa ngosuku olulodwa, kodwa-ke umehluko niyabonakala.
Thank you, Brigadier. At least you are saying the dreadlocks that are depicted on picture number 17 are long. But now let me quickly assist you with the dates on which these photos were taken. Let's go to page number 12. Page number 12. And we'll come and deal extensively with this photo album. The reason why I'm factoring it in now is because of the description. Thank you.
Understood, my lord.
Thank you, sir. Photo number 12. The date, please, the date. Thank you. Let me quickly assist you. This picture was taken on the 26th of October 2014.
Isithombe sathathwa ngomhla 26 ka-October 2014.
And it was taken at 17:31:14 seconds.
Isithombe sathathwa ngesikhathi ka-17:41 and 28 seconds.
Then let's go to picture number 17. Thank you. Picture number 17, I think your worry was you don't know on what date these pictures were taken, whether they were taken on the same date or what, you don't know. Let me tell you. Actually, that picture tells you that that picture was also taken on the 26th of October in 2014 at 17:28:39. In other words, the time difference between these 2 pictures is only plus minus 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Lesi sithombe lesi sathathwa ngo-17:28 and 39 seconds. Okusho ukuthi akubanga nesikhathi eside esadlula phakathi kokuthathwa kwesithombe sokuqala nalesi sithombe.
We submitted this question is irrelevant on 2 grounds. Firstly, accused number 3 himself concedes that it's him on those photos. It matters not, my lord, as to how one photo differs from the other. He has considered that it's him on those photos. What is the point now of splitting hairs regarding how he looks on one photo as compared to the other? That is the first point. But the second point, my lord, is clearly depends from which angle the person is viewed or the photos are taken. We therefore submit that this is not something that the witness can comment on, my lord.
Thank you, Brigadier. I respect the state's submission that will not be able to comment on this. Thank you. You may not comment. So says the state. You will not be able to comment, but thank you. I respect the submission. My lord, I'm feeling a bit of a discomfort in my tummy. I don't know what is happening. I've indicated to Mr. Ramusipili that since we started after a short adjournment, I felt like there's a bit of a discomfort in my tummy. It's getting worse and worse and worse. I don't know what is happening. So I'm requesting an adjournment. So to just try to find out if I can sort it out.
So, yeah, what's the time now?
It's 12 minutes to 1, my lord.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for the indulgence, my lord.
I brought you guys the judgment. I've been listening to Mr. Mnisi and Brigadier Gininda exchanging wits.
Yes.
So nobody can say I'm being precipitate or unfair. This is a judgment which talks about decorum. It's S versus Azov. 1974, 1 SA 808T, Transvaal Provincial Division. It's Judges Galkut and Sneeman. You'll read it for yourself, but this is what's interesting for me. This judge says, these judges, it was on appeal. In fact, the record fully supports the magistrate. When it went for appeal, the magistrate complained about the conduct of the attorneys. In fact, I must say that reading this record, I was shocked at the conduct of this attorney in cross-examining these witnesses. I think it must be made clear to him and perhaps to others that witnesses who come into court, be they police witnesses or any other kind of witnesses, are entitled to the ordinary courtesy one extends to decent people. Witnesses who give evidence are assisting the court in arriving at the truth and in carrying out the administration of justice. No cross-examiner is entitled to insult a witness or to treat him in the manner in which these witnesses were treated. Without there being a very good reason for it. Witnesses must be treated with courtesy and respect. They are doing a public duty in coming to court. That must be borne in mind by both the cross-examiner and the presiding officer. That's why I'm reading it. They mean even me. It was clearly the duty of the magistrate, me in other words, here, to protect these witnesses. I do not wish to be understood to say that a witness may never be attacked. But before you can attack a witness, you must at least lay a foundation to the satisfaction of the presiding officer that you have grounds for attacking the witness. Otherwise, the witness must be treated with respect and with the same courtesy that you would extend to a man in a civilized society. One is not rude to people when you speak to them during ordinary social intercourse. So why should it be any different in a court of law? Here, well, it may not be here. This cross-examiner really shocked me in regard to the manner in which he treated these respectable men. He starts by attacking them without any reason. He seems to assume that they are dishonest people and that he's entitled to attack and insult them. And when the magistrate intervenes to protect them, he does not hesitate to attack even the magistrate. I was also attacked by Mr. Ngomezulu in this court when I was accused of colluding which is a criminal conduct, colluding with Mr. Baloi, whom I never even knew from a bar of soap. When the magistrate intervenes to protect them, he does not hesitate to attack even the magistrate. I cannot find any justification for his conduct, and I think that the magistrate's strictures of him were fully justified. Galgut agrees with this. Just read this judgment. It's an old judgment before the Constitution came into being. 1974, when apartheid was celebrated in this country. And then these are two apartheid judges, and people call them, but they're my colleagues, who make these remarks. So you can read this judgment. It's very important. I've been listening about decorum, etc., etc., etc. That's why I've just kept quiet. Okay. So are we coming back at 1? Hello, just give them this judgment. Sorry, 2. Just give it. They'll make copies for themselves. Yeah, give it to Mr. Ramosipidi, he's watching you. Do you know this judgment, sir?
I know how to conduct myself.
No, I'm talking about the judgment, you see.
I don't know it.
Okay, 2 o'clock.